Hey YouTube, it's Matt with Olympus Reptiles, and today is an awesome day. One, I love filming, but I get to film with a guy who I consider one of man, you're one of the original guys in this.
Yeah, if you live long enough, that happens.
But I mean, this is a true hero to the reptile community, and this is Mr. Tom Crutchfield. If you don't know who Tom Crutchfield is now, stop, go look him up, and then come back and watch the rest of this. I don't have the time to explain everything that this man has done for our hobby and our industry. I mean, and you've got something in your hand. Let's start with this animal here. I'll let you just tell everybody about it.
Okay, this is a baby super crimson albino iguana, and really what that means, it's a super red albino iguana, and I just call them super crimsons. And when it will go through an ontogenetic color change over the next year, wow. And see the red color on top, the entire lizard will turn that red color, even the belly.
Yep.
And then a crimson, which is not quite as red as this at this age, will have a yellow belly always, like a red iguana has a green belly, a regular red. The gene works exactly like a pastel ball python or a hypoboa. It's a codominant trait.
So the
albino is a simple recessive, and this is a Crutchfield strain. This is not the same strain as all of the other albino iguanas, and because I produced those too. That's where they got them from, it's me. And I stopped breeding them several years ago because this strain is so much prettier.
Right.
It's the best T negative there is.
So you basically, all the albinos though out there came from you originally?
Originally, yes.
Yeah, but this is your favorite one.
I was the first person to breed them. Yes.
And when he says they're turning red, I want to be clear. When he's saying red, we're not talking like your traditional red iguana or blue iguana you find everywhere else.
No, we're talking about blood red.
This is an entirely different red.
This
is going to be beautiful. And so you have been kind of the king of iguanas, right? Mm-hmm. For a long time.
Right.
So you've also done a lot of work with venomous snakes, which I find very interesting. So how many years have you been working with venomous snakes?
Well, I caught my first I guess if I go back to when I caught my first venomous snake, I was 12 years old, and so that would have been 58 years ago.
So for 58 years?
Yes.
And is this something you believe people can do safely with a little bit of care and a little bit of practice?
I've only ever had 3 venomous bites in my entire life, and 2 of those were through a bag, and one of them struck out of the cage, an abnormal length, the feeding strike, and I didn't think it could even strike that far, and barely touched me with 2 fangs. But I've never even had to take anti-venom, and I've never been really hurt by a venomous snake. You don't have to get bit all the time.
Right, I agree.
If you follow 3 rules.
That's what I was getting. I know you got
them. 3 rules. First thing is, never open a cage with your hand. Never open a cage with your hand.
Right.
Open a cage with a utensil, like a hook or something like that. Second is, never service the cage, changing the water or anything like that, without removing the venomous snake, securing it, and then putting it back in the cage after you're through. And third, don't try to pick one up behind the neck, because most people don't know how, and it's exceedingly dangerous if you don't have a complete understanding. It is anyway, but just don't do it.
And there's no real reason to pick one up behind the neck.
There's no reason. You have tubes and everything, just don't do it.
Use your tubes, use your tools. That's what they're there for.
Correct.
And you'll keep yourself safe. So what's your favorite animal that you've ever kept? So you've had about everything.
Sakura.
Well, that was quick.
I mean, there's nothing better than rock iguanas, literally.
Yeah. And now is it the rock iguanas that you even keep outside and breed outside and all
Well, they're
that?
Free though. They're not even in cages. Mine just live free roam in the yard.
That is amazing.
It's true.
I've seen videos. I think Brian Cusco did a video on that, showing all those, and just free range. It's the neatest thing to see. Mm-hmm. Being in Kansas, I can't free range any reptile. No. We have a winter and it's bad. Mm-hmm. But your facility is like a dream come true.
It's pretty cool.
Over 58 years, what do you think is the strangest animal you've ever had, or the most unique?
Good question. One of the strangest animals, you mean reptiles or just any animal?
Any animal.
Okay, I think that one of the strangest animals that I've ever seen are silky anteaters, which if I showed you one, you wouldn't even be able to identify what it is. It looks like a cross between a sloth and kind of an anteater. But it's strange. Then probably the strangest animals I think I've ever seen that I had to sell when I first got them, were the Lanthanotus borneoensis, the Borneo earless monitors, and coconut crabs, which are not reptiles, but that's that giant crab from the South Pacific.
Yes.
And we put those at first in like big glass aquariums. They fill up about a third of it, and they just broke the glass out.
Oh, wow.
So then we put them in wire cages, and they just used that big claw, and they cut through the wire with like 10 snips. And if they ever got your finger, they would amputate it. So you had to be real careful. And so finally we had to keep them in big garbage cans with just one crab in the bottom, because they can't climb the sides and they can't get a grip on it.
Yeah, they can't. We
get a place we could keep them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Well, I got you here. There's one thing I got to pick your brain for everybody and myself included. So
Let me show you something else too.
Oh, sure.
Stacy, hand me that little thing with the iguana in it, the little thing down there, the orange thing. Not. Yeah, that. Sit it up here. Here, put this back.
A trade.
This is kind of cool. I'm going to go ahead and put this out too. Here, Stacy, what I get. Okay. This is a red axanthic iguana.
No,
in other words, it's a blue iguana, but it also is a red iguana, and it's also 66% possibly het for albino.
Wow.
And the idea of these is you can imagine a super crimson that was an albino xanthic, which is white. You would remove all the dark color. It would either be a hot pink or a blood red. We don't know yet. No one's ever done it.
That's going to be cool.
It will.
That's going to be cool. And but the one thing I really wanted to ask you too, while I got you here, man, that belly is like
incredible.
a sea green blue. Okay. That thing is just awesome. Look at this, guys. Wow.
And look how calm my captive raised ones are.
Oh, absolutely. Because a lot of iguanas
wild.
would be freaking out right now. And he's just hanging.
Yeah.
But you've seen so many changes in this hobby.
I have.
You've seen it shrink, you've seen it grow, you've seen it vilified, you've seen it raised up. Where do you think that we're headed? Because your insight to that is going to be probably better than
Well, we're
anybody
headed
else's.
to division. There'll be like people that do this kind of thing, people that do other kind, like the tropical fish industry, kind of. Now that people have reptiles, when I was young, everybody hated reptiles. So one thing that herpetoculture has done over time, the biggest positive thing is the attitude of people has changed, and then with the movies like Jurassic Park, pretty much many families now have had reptiles in the household, bearded dragons or ball pythons or some harmless reptile of some kind. So the attitude towards reptiles with regular people is changing. Not that they like them better, but they're not as apt to just kill them on sight because they realize that they're not dangerous and in fact one of the necessary components for a healthy ecosystem. So that's it. So I see fractionization because you have a lot of people involved now in reptiles that might know every morph of a ball python, and they don't even know where ball pythons come from, except for Africa. Yeah. I mean, but they couldn't tell you the countries, probably not even one country, much less 8 or 9 that they occur in.
So you see a lot of fracturization, but do you think we're on a healthy ground as a hobby? Because a lot of
no,
people
because
think
we're not.
downhill.
I think it is going downhill, and primarily because some of the industry standards, particularly for big pythons.
Right.
I see people keeping a 15 or 16 foot reticular python in a 4 by 8 foot pull out rack box, and I'm going to be honest with you, that's inhumane as hell.
Right.
It's terrible.
I agree.
A giant snake covers a huge territory, and the enclosure should be at least 2.5 times. The perimeter should be bigger than the longest snake inside, which means literally that a 20-foot snake should have a 12 by 15 enclosure or so.
Right.
12 by 12, anyway.
And just because it'll live in there doesn't make it right.
If I locked you in a bathroom,
right,
and I fed you, you would live. And if I put a woman in, you'd probably breed her.
I probably would.
You're bored as crap, so you're going to do anything. You'd probably die young, just like the snakes do. You'd probably get really fat because you can't exercise enough if you didn't watch what you ate, and you'd live a miserable damn life. But you'd live for a while. Yep. But since retics live 40 or 50 years, and most captive ones live in less than 20 years, what does that tell you? And they get the pinheads and the big fat
worms. I've heard
and also exceedingly dangerous too. A retic is in captivity.
Right.
Anyone bigger than 3 meters should always have 2 people there, and you should never put one around your neck, ever.
Because you can't.
You cannot get it off, and if you're by yourself, they have a fear of falling. So if they start to tighten up, and you don't like it, so you panic and sort of grab it, it's going to tighten up more. And it's like putting a V-bar. It'll choke you out, and then it'll kill you.
Yep. Not to
nobody to help you.
Just because it's doing what it naturally does.
It's not trying to hurt you at all. It's trying not to fall. And then you don't understand the behavior enough of what's going on to really even have one, and that's the problem too.
One of the other things I've heard on the caging is like with berms. Everybody's like, berms get a lot of respiratory infections.
Yeah,
but it's because they don't exercise because they're a small spot.
I kept Burmese outside on the farm in Florida. Of course, they live wild there anyway. I also kept Indian pythons, Sri Lankan pythons, and I have a huge reticulated python, almost 7 meters long. It's been outside for 12 or 15 years. They've never had a respiratory problem, not once.
It's because they're moving.
And they have sun and heat, and they choose the temp they want to be.
And they got to be able to breathe that whole lung and not just the front portion and get all that moisture and bacteria growing
it's bad.
moving. So yeah, I
think
totally
it's really
agree.
cruel, really, to keep them in really small containers.
And tubs aren't necessarily bad for certain species.
Well, not for certain species, but not for giant
not for
pythons.
giant snakes.
Once they're past about 3 or 4 feet long, they should never be in any tub.
Right.
Because they need to be able to climb. There's really the small ones, especially, are very arboreal.
Right.
Particularly with the ticks,
Yes.
scrubs, and stuff like that.
Because that's why the retics aren't as heavy bodied as some of
Right.
those, because they're going up in trees when
Exactly.
they're young. So I agree. And so it's all about caging your animal properly with the animal you have, and not just production. Tell you what, guys, we'll probably wrap this up because Tom's about to get busy. I don't want to interrupt your work. I appreciate it so much, and thank you for letting us hold this and
Hey,
see
it's my
everything.
pleasure.
And just picking your brain. And so if you guys learn
It
anything,
shouldn't take you long. Pick my brain.
if you guys learn anything, follow his 3 rules for venomous, and you can do it and be safe as long as you're following your state laws too. Because when you get in trouble
Yeah.
with that, it makes bad stuff for all of us. And if you want to keep big snakes, just make sure and give them the right space. Anybody can do it as long as you give them the right space.
And you know what, too? All snakes need more space than we think they do. Even ball pythons.
Really?
If you ever go to Africa and see ball pythons, people always say, well, they just stay in a termite mountain. No, they don't. They crawl around every night just about, or several nights a week. I mean, telemetry, there's a lot of, if you just look at the scientific papers, here's what I wish. I wish that private herpers would read scientific papers sometimes too, or at least Google information about certain species when you get it, so that you understand a little better how to keep it, because you understand a little better about the natural history of the snake. Because it goes back to people having stuff that they don't really know much about.
Right. And it's just not getting the absolute smallest tub necessary.
Correct.
I mean,
Get
I've
the
seen
biggest
people,
tub that you can provide for.
I see people
is
starting
better.
to switch to I can keep my females in the 40s. No, the females need those big 70s, they need that space, and
do.
even your males can need 70s if they're a big male.
They do.
Just because it's a sex doesn't mean it always gets a 40. I've got males I have to keep in the female tubs
Yeah.
because they're a bigger male and they need that room to be able to
Exactly.
stretch
They
and
do.
move. Let me hand this guy back to you.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me check them out. All right, you got anything you want to add, Jeff, before we get off of here? All right, you're just like Kurt, never
Hi,
any
man.
dad.
Thanks.
Mr. Crutchfield, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again,
My
I
pleasure.
appreciate everything you've done
Anytime.
for us.